Hi guys, welcome to our Getting Started series on Photoshop. So today we're going to just do a quick overview on the whole layout of the interface of Photoshop, and then we're going to jump into using Marquee tools. All right, so let's get started. All right, so after opening Photoshop, we need to get started with a new file. So we're going to go over to File, New, and we will get our options for setting up our new file. So we're going to give it a name. So because it's our Getting Started series, I'm going to be calling it Getting Started. Now we can create our own custom width and size if we so like. So we could, for instance, go 10 by 10, and you notice the document type says custom because I'm going with our custom. Or we can work with one of the presets that are given to us. Now, depending on your version, the layout for the presets may vary, but the idea is basically the same. So you can go with standard US paper, and you'll get the options for the different sizes available. So we have letter, legal, tabloid. You may go with photo, and you get a preset of different photo sizes based on landscape or portrait, or even web and mobile video. So the option is yours. You have presets for templates that you can work with. All right, so for today, we're just going to actually go with US paper. We're going to start with letter, and by default, it will fill it out. It's in inches. Our resolution now, depending on what we're going to be doing, our resolution, we can set our resolution. So if we're doing a high quality print or doing something for high definition output on television, we can leave our resolution at about 300. However, if we're doing something lighter, so for instance for web, or even just for a tutorial today, so it takes up less space, we're going to bump that down to about 72. Our color mode, we can also set that. We'll have the options bitmap, grayscale, RGB, CMYK, and color lab. Two more popular ones for work generally going to be RGB and CMYK. So I'm going to actually leave it at RGB. And our background, I'm going to leave at white. All other settings we can leave alone, and we can get started. All right, so this is our Photoshop workspace. In the center, we have our stage. This is where we'll be creating our compositions. At the very top, we have our menu bar. So where you see file, edit, image, and each of these give us our various menu items. On the left-hand side, by default, we will have our toolbar. And on the right side, we have other floating window palettes that we can work with. Now, all of these refer to as floating palettes because you can drag and move them around as you feel, and you can customize your own workspace to your liking. But to ensure that we're all working on the same level, I'm just going to reset this. So I'm working with essentials, and we're going to go to essentials, reset, just to make sure that we all have the same starting point that we are working with. All right, so let's get familiar with some of the tools that we have available to us. Now, the first tool of interest to us will be our move tool. Anything that you want to move, you're going to need the move tool for this. Now, when you select a tool, just below the menu bar, we get our option field, and it gives you the options available for the tool that you selected. So as I do different clicks on different tool, you notice that the option changes. So for our move tool, going back to it now, we have the option to do it for auto select, which means that whenever you click on it, an item, it will automatically select it. That can be turned on and off, and the control box will show up to help you with quick transform if you so choose. All right, now for today's activity, we're actually going to be starting off working with selection tools. And the selection tool that we are going to be working with is one known as the Marquee selection tool. Now, if you're not certain which one these are, When you put your mouse over each of the tool items, you get a little pop-up box giving you the name. So this is our Marquee selection tool. And the shortcut for that on the keyboard is M. And there's a little triangle down to the bottom right. Now, if you click and hold, it actually gives you more options available for your Marquee selection tools. Now, Marquee selection tools are basic selection tools that help you to interact with objects by allowing you to draw a shape around them. So the main ones we have are rectangular, ellipse, or a single row, which is a pixel height or pixel line, and a single column, which is also a pixel line, just going top to bottom. All right, so we're going to be starting out with the Marquee selection tool. And to basically use it, you click, hold, and you will just drag. And as you drag it out, it will vary in the type of shape that you have, and it will go anywhere from a rectangle to a square. And this you can use to pick up anything that is roughly rectangular in shape. If you want for it to actually come out as a perfect square, however, you have to hold down Shift. So while holding down Shift, no matter how you move it in and out, it will maintain a perfect square format. And when you have reached a size or area that you want to block out, you let go, and we now have our Marquee selection tool running. And you know that a selection tool is on because of these little dotted lines that look like marching ants going around the screen. So this is the Marquee selection tool, ideal for cutting out rectangular objects. And just to show you that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to promote our background layer. Now to do this, over on the right here where you see layers, you see background, and currently our background is locked, and we'll set that to white initially. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the padlock, and we're going to promote the layer. So you notice the padlock is now gone, the layer has been promoted. Now just to show you how the Marquee selection tool, we're actually going to now cut out this area that we have highlighted. So we can go edit, cut. I am on a Mac, so that's Command X, but if you're on the PC, that will be Control X for you. And you now notice that we have cut out a section, and that is roughly a triangle box. And you see, notice the checkered background right there. The checkered background means that it is transparent. All right, so now that we cut it out, I'm going to actually paste it. And the shortcut for paste is Control and V, or Command and V if you're on the Mac. All right, so I've now pasted it, and on the far right, where you see our layers panel, you now notice that we have two layers. Now they are a little bit hard for us to see, so we are actually going to change the colors for these layers so that we can identify them a little better. So I'm going to select layer 0. And when working with Photoshop, you need to ensure that you click on the layer that you want to make sure that it is highlighted. So I've selected layer 0, and now I'm going to look for the paint bucket. Now the paint bucket sometimes is hidden along in this area with the gradient tool. So we're going to click and hold, and we're going to look for the paint bucket. And then I'm going to select my colors for it. Now in Photoshop, we have two color options. The color to the front or foremost of it right here in our toolbar is our foreground color, and the one to the back sets our background color. So we're going to adjust the foreground, which is the area that we're working with. And I'm going to give two different colors. So I'm going to paint our layer 1, our layer 0, which is first selected, blue. So now that I've just selected the paint bucket, all I need to do is identify any area over that blue section, layer 1 section, and I can paint it. I am next going to go to our layer 1, and I'm going to find a different color, something with a little bit of contrast to it. And I'm going to paint that red just so that we can see the difference in layouts. All right, so we can now move this around. And if you remember earlier, I told you about the move tool. The move tool is what we use when we want to move any object. So I can actually click on the move tool and just click and drag and move objects around. All right. Also, I told you that we had the transform or show transform controls. This is what it looks like when it is on. So I can scale an object up or down. Now to scale an object, you just move to the corner node and you just drag up or down. Now, as you notice, it's moving in a variety of shapes. If I want to keep the shape locked in the original shape format that it is, I need to hold down Shift, and Shift will allow me to scale it up or down uniformly. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger and let go. All right, next thing we're going to pay attention to is our order for our layers. So right now, the red box is in front, and we're able to tell that because it is the highest in our layer order. Now, the good thing about Photoshop is that because it allows us to work in layers, we can actually change the hierarchy and allow different things to appear closer than they are. So if I click and hold and drag down my top layer below my bottom layer, we now see that our box now gets hidden behind our initial area. All right, so this is it as it relates to working with the rectangular marquee and the move tool. Okay, so next we're going to head on over to working with the elliptical marquee. So we're going to go back to our marquee section, click and hold, find our elliptical marquee, and that's the one we're going to work with. Now, to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to start with a new document. So File, New. Give it a name. I'm calling it L Marquee for short for the elliptical marquee, but give it an appropriate name as you so choose fit. So selecting our elliptical marquee, icon now changes. And it is very similar to that of working with the rectangular marquee. Click and hold to drag. As you move out, it looks more like an ellipse. If you want to get it as more circular, you can hold down Shift, that maintains the uniformity. And you let go. That's it. We've created our elliptical marquee. Now, this is good for cutting out objects of a circular nature. So we are actually going to do that next. Okay, so like how we said that it's actually better for cutting out images of a circular or elliptical manner, we're going to jump on over to Google. We're going to find an image of a ball, save it on our computer, and then we're going to create a new document that we're going to actually bring in this image and cut it out from its background. All right, now what we're going to do, File, New. I am going to use the same setting, the default setting, but this time I'm going to actually give my background a different color just so that we can actually see the difference with what we're working with. I'm going to find a light gray that I'm working with just to change the color. And I went onto YouTube, I found the image of a ball, and I'm actually going to bring it in. So I'm going to go File, Open. and we're going to find the image that I downloaded. All right, so here it is, the image of the ball. All right, now sometimes what happens to us is that our image may actually open in another area. So what we are going to do, we're going to use the elliptical marquee to cut it out, and we're going to carry it over to our composition that we have. So that's the one that I have right here called Untitled 1. I had forgotten to name this one. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We want to actually select the ball. So we're going to go find the elliptical marquee. I'm going to actually try and drag that it goes around it. Now, as you can see, it's a little bit hard to get it just perfect. And we may go a little bit over. So there's a trick to line it up and getting it a little bit easier. So for this trick, we're going to need to bring up our ruler. So let me deselect and start again. And to deselect, I can come up to selection and click deselect. Shortcut is Command D on the Mac, Control D on the key on the PC. And for this, I'm going to need my rulers. Now to bring up the rulers, I'm going to click on View and go to Rulers, and the shortcut Command D Mac, Control R on the Mac, and Command R. I'm mixing up the stuff today. All right, so Command R on the Mac, Control R on the PC. All right, good. Now you notice that our rulers are visible. Now for this, we want to drag a guide onto our work area. So I'm just going to go back to the Move tool, go up to our ruler, click and hold, and drag down a guide. And the guide does help us to line up things a little bit better. And I'm going to drag the guide until it touches the top of our ball. I'm also going to do one at the bottom. And two on the sides. Now to get the side rulers, we go over to the side, click and hold, and drag. Now what this will do is make it a little bit easier for us to identify our selection. Now to do that, now go back to our elliptical marquee, and we're going to go to the diagonal where the two lines meet. Click and hold and drag diagonally until we meet the other word. And what you find is that we get a more close-knitted selection around our ball. All right, so now that we have our ball selected, I want to drag it into my composition. So I go back to the Move tool, click and hold, and now you notice it's cut out the ball. So now I want to drag it over to the composition that I was making. So I just drag it up to the tab. It will switch over to the composition. I'm still holding. Bring the mouse down to the workspace on the stage and then let go. And now I have the ball brought over. And if I'd like to resize it, I can click and hold, shift and drag from one of the corners to scale it uniformly. And when I'm done, I press enter. If I want to duplicate it now, I'll go over to the layers panel and I can right click, duplicate layer. I will allow the default name for now, and click and drag, and I'm going to actually resize it. So your activity, guys, I want you to create a composition that has a few of the balls just laid out. So we can duplicate our layers. Shortcut to be able to do a quick duplication, you can also hold down Alt and click and drag, and it can create multiple duplicates rather quickly. All right, great. So now that we've created this with our elliptical marquee, we're going to save it for upload. So now we're going to just go File, Save, give it a name. Now we always first save our file as a PSD because this is the editable one. So I'm going to call this one ball comp, short for composition, as PSD. And this will allow for us to be able to come back in, edit, make changes to our file. So PSD is our native file type. If you want this as a flat image now that you can share with others, you then go back, File, Save As, and in our Save As option, we want to change the format from Photoshop to another file extension. So for instance, JPEG. And when we click Save, this will save this as a flat layer. Now, based on the size of the file you want, you can adjust high quality, max. If it's something that you just need for a quick show, you can put down to low or medium. And when you're finished, hit save. All right, guys, so thanks for joining. This is us working with the Marquee selection tools.